Hello.
Sir.
Hey.
Hi.
I'm just not there yet. Maybe, we just need to, I want to plan.
Hey, it's working.
Yes.
Yeah, we spread ourselves out this way.
I like this. I think.
Yeah, and then put the TV instead. We're not gonna use this screen for a while.
Oh, okay.
We'll look in the back, and the audience looks right here.
Got it.
And Matt? Natalie, looks like you're driving the technology today. Congratulations.
So
Doug's hiding back there.
Where is
I didn't
Matt?
see him.
well, hey, give me 2 minutes. Now, I can't get into my laptop now that we've gone through all that.
You can guarantee you can get on in 2 minutes, you're good. Okay, we're good to go. We are good, thank you very much. All right, Mr. Lamb will come on.
I tried my old password and it worked when I got locked out.
Like the rest of
You're right, the old
Yeah, the
password.
old password, all that for nothing.
All right.
So you had to use your old password to get
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, there we go.
One step, the old
We are so
password.
secure we can get into our own devices.
Exactly.
I love it.
Maybe when you close it down, turn everything off.
I bet that's right, Becky.
Yeah, when you turn it off. it'll-
Okay.
But that's not today's issue.
All right. Christy, you okay now?
I'm in.
Okay,
Yeah,
I got
thank you.
Brian,
Yeah.
Becky? Brian,
Yes, sir.
we ready to go? All right. Would you care to join us in a prayer before we get started this evening?
Lord, as we approach spring, we thank you for the warm, sunny days and look forward to flowers blooming and leaves on the trees. We are thankful for the decrease in COVID cases and more people being vaccinated as we anxiously await an end to the pandemic and a return to normal life. We are grateful that all our students have been able to return to school 5 days a week. Please give us the wisdom to make decisions that are beneficial to our schools and community. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. I'll call this meeting to order and welcome everyone to the March Franklin School Board meeting. With our first item on the agenda would be the comment section. And so we'll open up tonight with public comments. If you have any comments regarding the agenda this evening, you're welcome to step up to the podium back in the back. You'll have 2 minutes for comments. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Tim Curry, and I live here in Franklin. My question was regarding the textbook and the software, the textbook adoption, the software. My question is, are there multiple bids going out to different supplier sources for those, or is there a single source that's going to? My question is really around, are we getting the best price, best quality for the books or the software that we're buying? So that's my question.
Great question.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Brooke.
I can address the textbook, and then Matt, maybe you can address software as well, if there's a question related to that. With regards to textbook adoption, we have a process that we follow. We're on about every 6-7 year cycle for adopting resources. So when you see those resources come across the agenda, please be mindful that that adoption is often for 6 years. Right now, for world languages, for example, it's been 7. But what we do is, in the last couple of years, we've sat down and looked at what are the needs, what are the things we need to change, what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, and then we vet a number of vendors. Some of those the state will recommend or suggest, others we just know and find. We vet them through a process with our teachers, and then we choose the option that we believe is best for our students in accordance with our guiding principles, in accordance with the curriculum that we've been given from the state with regards to our standards and essential skills. It is a many months long process, sometimes longer than that. We are already thinking about what we're going to do next year. So there are many vendors that we consider. So thank you for your question. I don't know, Matt, if you have additional information with regards to technology. Was that part 2 of your question as well, technology? Yeah.
Okay, sure. So when we come to making technology decisions, obviously what would look good for one grade level may not look as great for another. So what I do as a director of technology is I get a group of people at the table and determine what the criteria is. And using a tool called an AHP, we basically prioritize that criteria, pitting one against another. For example, which is more important, price versus content versus curriculum versus exams. And the teachers tell us what's important. Then using a pew chart, we go through and we rank each of the vendors depending on that. And ultimately, it gives us a default value. The higher the value, the better the association to our school district.
Matt, but in terms of software, like if we go to purchase software, I think that's really what Mr. Curry's asking you. If we go to purchase software, do we go to only one site?
Oh,
Or-
no.
Or do you look at multiple
We do
sites?
it multiple at a minimum
Yeah.
of 3.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 6 or 7. And once again, we measure that against the criteria. For example, when we did the web filter for our Chromebooks, we're looking at the applications. We're measuring them against the criteria. We're answering and we're diving into those details to make sure that when we say this is what's best for us, we measure it against the criteria of the people that chose what was important.
Does that answer your question? Yeah, thank you for asking.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Any other comments regarding the agenda this evening? Mrs. Betts is shaking. We don't have anything online, so we'll move into the board section, and then we'll get into our subcommittees. The first one I'll address is the Athletic Council. This athletic group is wrapping up winter sports, and you'll see here in a minute when we get to recognition, we've got a huge list of student athletes to recognize this evening. So really impressed with that group. But as we wrap up the winter sports, our boys are in 4th in our conference. Girls are in 1st. So combined school, we're sitting right at 2nd. And then again, we'll have a call out on those individual student athletes that we'll recognize for that. But I would like to invite Mr. Doty to come up to the podium to discuss the naming of our athletic facilities.
I'll head up there in just a second. Thank you, Mr. Land, but I wanted to go ahead and just pass something out to you. Just a little packet I put together for each board member, just so you can have a frame of reference for what we'll be talking about. I don't have any slides
Bill?
to present.
Bill,
Oh,
I gave him my.
sorry, Mr. Wertz, I was
Thank you.
He's used to it.
It's okay.
Thank you.
That would be one no vote.
That's how you get a no vote. Everybody's on the same page.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
As Mr. Lamb said, I want to talk, basically bring forward for discussion the possibility of naming our outdoor athletic facilities after a former coach, former educator, former administrator, Noel Hamminger. When I first started having these conversations with a few people from our community, one of those being Butch Zyke, who was a longtime friend and adversary, right, at Whiteland High School. He coached against Butch for a long time, and then Butch was obviously athletic director, and so they formed a long bond, friendship, and I talked to Butch about this possibility, and he, obviously, he's in favor of it, not necessarily a Franklin a person, so to speak, but he knows Mr. Noel Hamminger's dedication to Franklin, to the school district, to the athletics department, and to all the kids here. So I had that conversation with Mr. Zyke, and then started talking to a few other people, and talked to Dr. Clendenning, obviously, and then brought it forward to the athletic council. And so it went through that process of basically just informal discussions with Dr. Clendenning's approval to take it further. Then we get into the school policy, the 7250 of naming the school facilities, that process by which we do that. We formed a committee, and those committee members are Ryan Firebend, Craig Bland, Don Geisler, Steve Ahouse, Dave Thompson, and myself. So I talked to Mr. Hamminger first. To be honest with you, I talked to him and just to seek his approval if he was okay with having something named after him and recognizing him. And I talked to his family members, and he was emotional, to say the least, about this possibility, and his family members, his three daughters, Jill and Allie and Stephanie, they're ecstatic about it. And you can see this process started back in October. As you can see, the front, what you have before you is the letter from his daughter, one of his daughters, and I'll just read just a sentence at the very end of that. The hours that Noel dedicated to his work and athletic community are countless. Generations of students have benefited from his hard work, and generations to come will also. Noel was he's a graduate of Franklin High School in 1968, graduate of Eastern Illinois in 1972, was employed at the high school from 1973 to 2010. He was an assistant coach for football and basketball from 73 to 78, and then the head baseball coach from 1978 to 1995, and then director of athletics from 1994 to 2010. Then, in that span of him being director of athletics, led him to obviously work as an administrator and work on this facility up here in the athletic facility and his vision for what it should be and what it can be for the student athletes and this community as a whole. So what I'm proposing is a plaque cast in bronze, which is in keeping with what's in the school policy, in recognition of Noel Hamminger's years of service, would be placed at the main gate entrance. And then bronze letters, and this is just kind of a generic mock-up. You can see at the main gate there, where it would say Noel Hamminger Athletic Complex. Those bronze letters then would be placed across the top of the main gate arch, or in that horizontal bar, that kind of like what you see there below. So how we would recognize Noel for his years of service. I'll leave you with a couple quotes from a few people, or a couple people that were on our committee. From Dave Thompson, you can see the full letters there, but Dave says at the end of his note, "As a volunteer, I always found Noel supportive and someone who listened. His long history of service to FCHS should be rewarded and honored." And then from current high school teacher Dawn Geisler, "I worked alongside Noel for 9 years as the assistant athletic director. I feel that the FCHS outside facilities in particular are a representation of the culmination of Noel's efforts to bring our FCHS athletic facilities up to a standard of excellence and consolidate our facilities to one location." And then she goes on to say, "Naming the facility after Noel would be a way to recognize him for his years of service as an educator, coach, and leader in our school and community, and thank him for inspiring us to be more. I support naming the outdoor complex the Noel Hamminger Athletic Complex." So, this is, I know we don't come to this, without a lot of scrutiny, and naming our facilities we take very seriously. And I feel like this outdoor athletic complex, I talked to Noel at length at a soccer game while he was watching his grandson play, and you just got a sense of pride that he feels about his work here with this athletic facility and this whole community. So that's what I would like to see happen. I know the group of the committee, obviously our athletic council, we thought it prudent to bring it forward and to see if we can make this happen. So, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Doty. So again, for the board, for your awareness this evening, next month we'll come in under a discussion item to start talking the specifics, and so we move forward in the process.
Thank you.
Okay, next subcommittee is Central 9.
Yes, so Central 9 had chosen Lancer and Beebe for their expansion project. Dr. Kovac had come and talked to us at our budget retreat and presented all the specifics. Looks like it's going to be around $4 million project. They're still trying to kind of narrow down how much each school will be responsible for, and let us know that if we agree to proceed with it. So our next meeting is this Thursday.
Thank you. Next is collective bargaining, and there's no update for this evening. Then we'll move to communications.
We did not meet.
Legislative Council.
I think that the one thing that I would highlight to Legislative Council, obviously the House and the Senate have switched bills. They've narrowed it down. Obviously, the budget is the #1 bill for both groups, and there's a lot of conversation, obviously, about public funding and, the voucher system funding. And so that's something that we just need to continue. I know you all received information from ISBA and different things. I've spoken with Mr. Lamb directly about kind of the journey. So that's probably the big highlight, it's a lot of money going, I'll just say it's a lot of money that they're wanting to earmark and target to the voucher system. And we look at what we're doing. I am a little chagrined that the next level teacher compensation they have a 110-page document, and they did very little with that. So that did disappoint me, because there's some really significant steps I believe they could have taken and moved forward, but that's where we are. So, do you have anything else on that?
Nothing to say publicly right now, Dr. Clendenning, but
So we'll continue to keep monitoring that and moving forward. I think the other one that's an interesting bill out there is the whole Green Township up in northern Indiana. There's a group that wants to leave South Bend schools and move into John Glenn. And they want to be placed on the ballot. Well, obviously, they say it's just for that one, but you can imagine the ramifications it would have if they allowed townships to say, I want to choose that township, and I want to go over there and join that township, and all of the long-standing. So that one's another one that people are really commenting about, that I've been watching. Ms. Gross, are there any other items that
No, I think we're still looking at a 1% increase for the 22 school year in the basic grant tuition support, and then a 2% in 23. So I believe that's still on the table.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. How about mental health?
We just meet every other month, and we meet tomorrow.
Okay. Music Council.
There was a meeting today, but we had an executive session, so I don't know if there was anything notable.
They did meet today
Okay.
for a little bit. Couple of things. There was a conversation about checking the condition of the trailers and working with Jeff Sewell and Doug in transportation to make sure on an annual basis those are where we need those to be. Conversation ongoing about storage, and long conversation about ensuring that we're purging things we don't need before we talk about adding additional storage. And I think Jeff Sewell, you've been noted as a leader in that conversation, so thank you for your partnership on that. Recruiting for next year at CBIS and the middle school, trying to ensure that we look at band and choir and how we continue to feed those programs. An exciting talk about planning for 21-22, finishing out the school year strong, getting kids engaged, and looking toward the next year. So,
Very good, thank you. How about RDC?
Nothing that pertains to the schools.
All right. How about the Superintendent Strategic Council?
We did not meet, but we are bringing an action item forth tonight for the adoption of the 2021 to 2030 strategic plan.
And then finally, our Diversity and Inclusion.
yeah, we had a meeting a couple weeks ago. Dr. Aziz continues to just be awesome. She is so impressive. Those meetings, I come away just like so much more self-aware of how I view the world and, where I need to improve. And I think we're on the beginning of something that's going to be really special for our school district. And I'm just super, super excited and super thrilled that we've made these choices.
and we have two guests with us from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee that are going to share briefly. They asked for, what was it, 30 minutes? And we vetoed that. But no, we're honored to have Dr. Jeff Williams with us this evening. He is a faculty member in the Masters for Athletic Training program at Franklin College. Mrs. Molly Leakin is, Dr. Clendenning's been working on
I've been trying to help him.
He's been trying
The
all
roof
day,
is
all
leaking.
day. Mrs. Molly Leakin is with us as well. She's one of our teachers in our music department, both at Union and at Webb. So they are going to join us up here at the microphone at the podium and share briefly. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you. I have my notes to keep it brief, and I have timed it. It's not 30 minutes. Kept it as short as I could. So as Dr. Rowland said, my name's Molly Leakin. I teach music at Webb and Union Elementaries, and I also am soon to be a Franklin Schools parent. My oldest will be starting preschool at Webb next year, so we're excited about that. I was really eager to join the DEI committee this summer after Dr. Clendenning issued an invitation to all the school staff, and I feel like I've already gained a lot personally from the meetings that we've had. I'm really excited about where we're headed, like Mr. Wagner said, so thank you to everyone here. I wanted to be sure I said thanks for your leadership and your support of this work and this journey. Dr. Aziz has joined us for our last couple of meetings to guide our work. We've read the first couple chapters in a book called Courageous Conversations About Race. And that discussion is really helping us set just a foundation for how to have a courageous conversation. A conversation about a topic that might be difficult sometimes, personal, can have differing viewpoints, but how can you have a conversation about those topics that is productive? And so we're listening to building trust with each other and really doing a lot of personal reflection. One piece of that personal reflection has been, we were all invited to complete the IDI, which is the Intercultural Developmental Inventory Assessment. And it's a survey tool that we each took, and it identifies our competency in how we recognize cultural differences, and then how we navigate through those cultural differences when we interact with people from different cultures. And after our last meeting in February, we each received our personal results from that IDI assessment. And now we're kind of in the process of everybody just reflecting on where they're at, where we might like to go with that, and how we're going to get there, what our action plan is to get there. I was able to have a one-on-one phone call with Dr. Aziz last week. She made that opportunity available to each one of us. And so she and I talked on the phone about my personal results. And one thing that I have learned is that I don't know, and I haven't often thought a lot about my own culture. And so that's a big goal for me, is to think a little bit more and learn more about my family history and how the communities and cultures that I have been a part of are shaping how I view the world. So that's a real personal reflection piece that all of us have been engaging on the committee. And finally, one of the first questions that Dr. Aziz asked us is, what's our personal why? And Dr. Werlin asked if we might share a little bit about that. So what our personal why, what motivates us, what can inspire us if this journey gets challenging for us. And so I've reflected on kind of two big whys for me, my faith and my children. My faith calls me daily to just live a life of community. I'm called to love my neighbor and to serve my neighbor like Jesus did. And in my teaching, my faith calls me to really look closely at how well I understand and how well I'm meeting the needs of all of my students so that they see themselves represented and as valued members of my classroom. And then second, my own children motivate me in ways that I could speak for well more than 30 minutes about. But I'll just focus for now on how my children, the hopes and dreams that I have for them are really a great source of empathy for me when it comes to other parents and mothers. And when I engage in this work of equity and inclusion, I view it as a way to stand in solidarity with my students and with their parents and show my commitment to them in providing them the best possible environment for their education. So those are some of the big takeaways for me, and I'll just say I'm really excited about where we're headed as well. So thank you for your time, and I'll introduce Dr. Williams next.
Well, yes, good evening. Thank you, Molly, and thank you for our board liaisons from the committee. It's an excellent thing that is happening, that the district or the corporation is looking to work on diversity and inclusion. So I had a couple thoughts I wanted to share with you. Again, my name is Jeff Williams. I teach over at Franklin College. I'm on the committee, and I consider myself an educational partner with the school corp. We use the athletic trainers here for clinical preceptors for our students, so we're over here and our students blend with the staff here, so great place. I wanted to share a quick story about a friend of mine who was asking me some thoughts about his business, and he said, I want to upgrade my business, I want to improve my business, I want to improve the services that my business provides. He runs a moderately sized company, and he wants to improve his services to the point that he says he wants his services to be excellent. He says he hopes his company's services are not just known around town or regionally for being really, really high quality, but also known for being easily consumed by a broad array of consumers in the marketplace. Makes sense. Have really high quality services from your company, and also ensure that those services can be effectively consumed by a broad array of people in a marketplace. And so He wants all types of consumers, high-income consumers, low-income consumers, first-timers, highly experienced, folks with different levels of disability, of abilities, locals, transplants. He wants everyone to be able to actually consume his company's services. It sounds like a brilliant business plan, right? If we own a company, we want as many people to purchase our services as possible. Maybe with me talking to you about his company, you're thinking, what is his company? Is it an insurance company? Is it financial advisors? Is it catering services? Maybe a landscaping company? And the answer is actually none of the above. It's a school corporation. And my friend is a hypothetical character that represents Dr. Clendenning, Dr. Orland, my colleagues on the diversity inclusion group. And it's an illustrative story to explain that just like in business, when you want to upgrade your services so that more people can effectively consume your services, it's a brilliant business model. It's a brilliant business strategy. So emotion aside, differences in pasts and culture and all of these awesome things aside, this is a brilliant maneuver for a community to upgrade its services for all of the people in the community, and puts the community ahead of its neighboring communities in that market space. So I just wanted to offer that illustrative story. It was a fake story, you know by now. And so this new trajectory of the public schools in Franklin, it really shouldn't be intimidating or threatening to anyone, simply because it benefits everyone. And so I hope that that's how folks feel. And if you ever have questions or insights, please share with the group, and we would love to hear them and work through those. So that's my why. That's why I'm involved, and I'm excited about it, and hope that folks can join us in this effort to upgrade the services that the school court provides so that more people can effectively consume those services in an inclusive way. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was great.
Thank you both so much.
All right, we'll move to the next section, which is recognition. And as I mentioned, we've got the first is our individual student growth. And so sit back, we've got a long list of folks to go through.
We do. We have a second month in a row of a fantastic list of recognitions this evening, and it's so powerful to see these accomplishments from our students. Congratulations to our students, their teachers, their coaches, and their families. We're going to start with a National Merit finalist. You may remember back in November, we announced that Franklin Community High School senior Sydney Clements had advanced to the semifinalist level of the National Merit Scholarship Program. Well, we're excited to announce that Sydney was chosen as a National Merit finalist. So congratulations, Sydney. Yes, let's give her a round of applause. Excellent work. Congratulations to your teachers, your community, and your family. Excellent job. The next list surrounds our student athletes. And so again, more excellence that we're seeing. I'm very proud of all of these students. The high school girls basketball team had a great year. They made it to semi-state with a record of 22 wins and 3 losses. Congratulations to Kyra Baker, Corinne Brunson, Erica Buning, Abigail Ferguson, Scarlett Kimbrell, Lauren Clem, Natasha Root, Lauren Sandrock, Megan Thompson, Brooklyn York, Kendall Jockum, and Emma Sappenfield. Again, let's give them a round of applause. Now, we would like to offer a special congratulations to Corinne Brunson. She was selected by the Indiana Basketball Coaches Association for the Underclassmen Supreme 15 All-State Honors Girls Team for 2020-2021. Also, Corinne was chosen for the first team All-State by the Indiana Coaches Girls Sport Association for 2020-2021 basketball. Congratulations, Corinne. Fantastic job. Our high school wrestling team, we had 5 wrestlers that made it to the state finals this year. We want to extend congratulations to Jake Beckert, Jacob Johnson, Tyler Fuqua, Harris Eason, and Nolan Skaggs. Congratulations, gentlemen. Job well done. Swimming and diving. We want to congratulate both our girls and our boys teams this year. We will start with the girls team. The girls swimming and diving team qualified for state finals and finished 5th place. Congratulations to the entire team and the coaching staff and to their families for another great season. Jillian Antle, Cabria Chapman, Grace Fisher, Gwyneth Frost, Madeline Hedges, Aaliyah Hensley, Zoe Keller, Lillian Lacey, Allison Lacey, Paige Lawrence, Mallory Luce, Emily Martin, Jenna Miller, Jenna Newton, Cameron Quiggins, Gracie Payne, Emma Pietras, Janie Salyers, Olivia Stone, and Chloe Thane. Congratulations to the girls' swim team and their families. Excellent job. And our boys' swimming and diving team also qualified for the state finals and placed 4th. Congratulations to the entire team, their families, and the coaching staff, again, for a great season. Congratulations to Barrett Daly, Albert Nuswanhana, Kate Oliver, Ethan Pfeiffer, Mac Ratzliff, and Anthony Riaz. Congratulations, gentlemen. Congratulations to all of our student athletes and all of our students. Great job.
All right, continuing on with the recognition, I get the pleasure to highlight 3 groups this evening. The first group is the custodial grounds and maintenance departments here within the school. The board is recognizing groups as the hard work that they've put in for the COVID, all the flexibility that they have provided the schools. We've asked a lot of many groups here to adjust their schedules, adjust the way that they've supported the schools. And here again, the Franklin grounds, custodial, and maintenance departments have stepped up to meet that. So this proclamation is for that group who have continued to serve our students of the Franklin Community Schools by remaining flexible and accommodating throughout the many changes brought upon by COVID-19. The custodial grounds and maintenance departments are dedicated and valued departments at the Franklin Community Schools. And therefore, March 9th will be the custodial grounds and maintenance day here at the school, and we will have a recognition day for them in correspondence with that. To the same line, we also want to recognize our Cub Care group, who has also had to face some great challenges. They've continued to serve the students at Franklin Community Schools. That Cub Care staff has remained flexible and accommodating throughout the many changes of COVID, thinking about the support for those students through the fall and then even here into the spring. So again, we will recognize them this week, set out and doing something special for them. And then finally, our Cub Academy, as they continue to serve the students of the Franklin Community Schools. That staff has also remained flexible and accommodating throughout the many changes that we've seen. So you can hear the theme that we have, right? We want to recognize just what these folks have faced. I can go back to the grounds crew and tell you from a board, we held work that they did outside, right? And people were coming in saying, hey, the grass is getting long. We're going to have to start belling it instead of cutting it. We said, just hold off, right? But when they came in, it didn't take them long at all, and they got this place looking nice again. All of our grounds looking nice again. And I could go in and give examples on each one of these other groups. So we just want to say thank you. We want to recognize the hard work that you've done, and we really do appreciate that from the board. So thank you for that.
And Mr. Lamb, tomorrow is the day we're actually recognizing them. We are having lunch catered by Burger Box And for the Cub Care and Cub Academy, we know it's sometimes hard to get away at lunch, so we've partnered with McAllister's Delis in Bloomington, with McAllister's, and they will be getting a meal from McAllister's as a thank you. So we are partnering with them, but tomorrow is the official day that we recognize and honor them.
Thank you. Okay, that will move into the next item on our agenda, and that's the consent agenda. As we go through there, just to highlight, we did call out last month. We've got a retirement, but again, I think it's worth, Jill Overton is retiring. So again, we want to say thank you for her dedication and service to the school corporation.
We also have Pam Kissel, 23 years of service. She's the person that makes sure all of our state reports get filed in a timely manner. And she started off her life as the union secretary, I believe, at that time, and then it shifted to administrative assistant, and she was doing some textbook riddle stuff, a little bit of everything, but Pam is going to do a new journey at the end of the year, so I want to thank her as well.
Okay, is there from the board any questions regarding the consent agenda? Do I have a motion then?
Mr. Lamb, prior to that, if I could, I would ask Mr. Sewell to talk just a little bit about the reentry plans. I think we all know that we're moving into a new era. 1 year almost to the date that COVID hit Indiana, Franklin schools will return to K-12, all students back in place. So that makes we're in phase 5 for the first time in a year. There are some changes that are coming before us starting this week and moving into the future. I've asked Mr. Sewell, who's dutifully and done a wonderful job of leading us through the safety and reentry process. So I thought we would highlight some of those. So if people ask the board and talk about what's new in phase 5, we now get to see that. So Mr. Sewell, please.
Well, thank you. That's a great introduction. So I think as we count ourselves fortunate here a year into the pandemic to have the county back in blue status, there's a lot of interest in things being back to normal. And nobody more than us. We are very thankful that we have kids back in school, K through 12, 5 days a week, starting this week. And so there's a lot of questions about how much longer are we going to be under our reentry plans. And so we do feel that we have made it our hallmark to follow the Department of Health and the CDC guidelines. And we're going to stay the course with those things. Those guidelines are still in place. The things that have allowed us to be in school, we want to stay the course on those and to keep us in school. So you guys are all familiar with these, and we are looking forward to the day when we don't have to wash our hands 20 times a day or wear these face masks. But we think that's the formula that we need to stick with for a while longer as we push to the end of the school, and we would really like to stay in stage 5. A couple of things that are new and as we chart a course forward, if we want to go to the next slide, we are increasingly comfortable with our reentry plans and the things that we've been able to do to allow our students to participate in their extracurricular activities and the activities in our classrooms. And so we are encouraging our extracurricular leaders, our athletic coaches, and our teachers to look at those opportunities for students to be engaged in some of those things that we had to kind of say no to for a large part of the year. So we are getting quite comfortable with expanding our reentry plan to cover things like Girls on the Run coming back to us, or walking field trips in the community to get our kids into the museum here in town, or other activities kind of to be able to say yes to the things we've been saying no to for the good part of the year. So this slide just talks about some of those things. We are going to start inviting some of our volunteers that have been a big help to us in years past. We've had to say no to most volunteer situations throughout the year. We'd like to start opening that up selectively starting right after spring break, get some of the parents and some of the other folks in our community that have helped us in classrooms and in other activities and events. We want to work them back into our situation to help us grow students. Spectators, all the CDC guidelines and the state guidelines still talk about social distancing and masks being a part of our spectators, even as they allow up to 100% of a venue's capacity. We really feel like when you take the whole of that guideline, we're going to be still operating at 25% capacity indoor venues and 50% capacity in our outdoor venues for now. And we'll keep tracking those guidelines as they evolve in the coming weeks. I think the other thing is we talked about volunteers. The other call I get a lot of questions about is the school use and rental of school facilities, and we are starting to say yes to some of that. Again, we have just recognized our custodians, and when we open our facilities, that creates more work on top of a group that's already under a lot of pressure. So we're going to selectively do that where it's providing great opportunities for our community and for our students. We've also resumed admitting college students for student teaching and classroom observations. Our staff weight room is back open. So we are, as we move forward, we're looking at saying yes to more items in our world. Last thing that's we're very encouraged about is vaccine is increasingly available. We're glad to get a pathway for teachers to receive that vaccine this past week. And so we are, that affords us some new opportunities, and we will be watching those guidelines as they evolve closely in the coming weeks. So some of the questions we get, and Amanda Martin, our Director of Health Services, is here to help us if we have any questions about that. But sometimes the vaccine produces some symptoms, and in the first 3 days, that's vaccine related, and it doesn't cause any need to quarantine or isolate. But on day 4 and later, those, even if you've been vaccinated, if you have COVID symptoms, you would be under our same guidelines. So that's an important distinction. Vaccine isn't completely a solution, but we do expect that it'll be much less likely for people to become sick or to make others sick if they've had the vaccine. So that's an important part of the whole package for us. The other thing that the vaccine provides the advantage for us is if you have received your full regimen of vaccines, you are not subject to a quarantine in that first 3 months after you're done with that. So if you were a close contact to a positive case, you would not have to quarantine. So that, again, that helps us with our staffing levels, and we're anxious to see our teachers and staff access that vaccine and again, just be part of the full package of things that help us to serve kids and stay in school. That's the highlights. Again, we are very encouraged by the direction of COVID trends in our community, and are looking forward to finishing the year strong.
Has there been any talk about graduation? Has there been talk about any
Yes.
changes in graduation?
Mr. Ahouse is definitely in the midst of planning for graduation. We felt like the outdoor graduation last year was so great, such a nice experience for the community, and they're planning that same direction this year.
And I think as far as attendance, we are still looking to see kind of what the state's going to do to allow tickets. Obviously, moms and dads will be in attendance for graduation. And we're hoping that more people, but similar to what we did last year, it'll be on both sides of the stadium like we did, and then utilize the main area for the student body in that regard. So, yeah, we are looking at that as the venue, and I know that Steve's excited. I'm hoping that by that time that we're really through this and people that want to come can come. But we will continue to maintain our safety, and and all of those things.
Any other questions?
All right, thanks, Jeff.
All right, thank you.
Can I just say, here's a question that's gonna come, and I wanna go ahead and just answer it. There's a chance that I think we'll see the state of Indiana release the mask mandate. So it's gonna come to us, what will we do in our school system? And the answer you saw on the screen is we will stay the course through this school year of a mask in the building with mask breaks on the inside as we move forward. It's a way that we can stay in school and stay at phase 5. So I know there'll be people ask us and to ask, why won't we acquiesce? But my recommendation is we stay the course. We only have 8 weeks left after spring break. We can do this. We can do hard things. We've done hard things. We've done amazingly hard things. And this is just one little thing we're gonna need to do to step further. So if you get that, you probably will maybe get a call or two. We are staying the course, the recommendation that we would stay with masks.
Have we had success in teachers and staff getting signed up for the vaccine?
We have had success. We've had frustration as well. So Amanda's here, but I can talk, come on, Amanda, come on up. Some of the frustration has to do with the systems. As President Biden announced everybody's going to get vaccinated, the system wasn't ready for that. And so we had some stressors. So Amanda has been working behind the scenes to help us.
Yeah, so like Dr. Clendenning said, we've had some success, but I believe that we have no control over the website. So I think the companies are feeling a little bit overwhelmed with the traffic, and so the appointments are getting gobbled up fairly quickly. So they've been trickling in. I've talked to quite a few people throughout the district over the last several days, and we do have several teachers and staff that are scheduled, but there's a lot of frustration just because they can't quite get it through. I do expect Walmart to come through this week and open up their website, which would help because that's another source. And there is still a little bit of confusion because there's 2 options. If you're 50 and older, you have the opportunity to get the vaccination through the state, which allows you to go to the health department and or like the Kroger's and the Meijers. But if you're under 50, you only have the option to go directly to the pharmacy. So we're trying to work through that communication and just making sure everyone's aware of which road they need to be traveling down. So, but yes, I'm hoping the next week things will calm down a bit and everyone will be scheduled if they want to be scheduled.
Have any of those stores reached out to us?
Not yet, and we have been trying to reach out to them.
Yeah.
But they are very busy right now.
Sure.
And so they're very difficult to have a conversation with because it's not really at the local level, it's more of a corporate district level. And so trying to get a hold of those personnel has been quite a challenge. So we're going to keep chugging along because ideally it would be nice. We saw an article today that Meijer had teamed up with some schools to set up clinics on site. And so that would be a great opportunity, and we'd be more than happy to host a site to get through our staff or even, for other districts as well. So I will continue to try to find a contact, but if you know of anyone.
Well, I do have one. We had discussion today.
Okay.
And ISTA and Meijer are partnering together.
Good.
So the contact is Chad Hunter, and
Okay.
you and I'll get together to see
Perfect.
what we can do. And they are looking at partnering and having big sites. So it wouldn't just be probably for our school people. But if we do that, I still want to let everybody know, we would probably go to an e-learning day so that we can get all of our people
Let's
in
just-
at
yes.
the one time, or if it ends
Bang
up
it
being
out,
2
yes.
times,
Yes.
that's what we'll do. So that's still the journey. Amanda's done a lot of work, and she's been on the phone for hours on other things, been trying to find out. So at discussion today, Tony told me that Chad Hunter is our contact.
Okay.
So we'll go that route tomorrow and
That'd be
see what
great,
happens.
yes.
All right, Chad, we're rooting for you, Chad. If you're
Yes.
listening,
You're
Chad.
watching Chad.
We're calling you, Chad. Yes.
Yeah.
Don't leave us hanging.
Right.
Get out there.
What a
Thank you
dad
very
joke.
much.
Hanging Chad, that was a good one. You're doing awesome. Thank you for everything.
Well,
You're doing a
thank you. So,
fantastic job.
Do you have any other questions? Good?
I'm good.
Good.
Okay. Well, we'll hopefully we'll have a good update in a couple days for you.
All
Oh,
right.
I do have one more. You guys will stay up there. Spring break's coming. What's going to happen, and are you required to have a test before you come back to school?
Well, that's a great question. So, no, not to come back to school, but if you are traveling internationally, you would be required to have a negative test to board your flight home. So we are asking that our students and staff, they monitor for signs and symptoms, and that they do their daily screener upon return, and that they stay home if they're not feeling well, just as they would any other day. And so that would go for travel, or if you're staying home for spring break. But don't come to school that Monday if you're not feeling well.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions or comments around the consent agenda? All right, do I have a motion then?
I move to approve.
Thank you, Brian. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Christie. Brian, how do you vote?
Yes?
Christie?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I vote yes. The consent agenda passes. All right, we'll move now to the superintendent reports. And we've got a day in the life of the virtual world.
We do, and we have with us this evening 4 of our teachers who are teaching in our virtual space. 2 of them in the K through 6 space. Carolyn Ray is teaching 2nd grade virtually for us. Megan Green is teaching 3rd and 4th. They are joining us virtually. And then after they share with us, we have with us Ann Wilson. Ann Wilson, do you want to wave? Right? Ann is helping at our middle school with that virtual option. And then Eric Rose is here as well, working with virtual students at the high school. So our tech colleagues are going to work their magic and bring us Carolyn and Megan. Not me.
I hope that you can hear us okay. Can you hear us?
We can hear you.
We can hear you, but we can't
All
see
right.
you.
Well, good evening, everyone.
Can you
You cannot see us?
Can you guys see them?
Oh, there.
Yeah.
Yep.
There, we're getting closer.
There we go.
I know, this technology stuff, you know.
And you
I
are
have to troubleshoot every day.
You are live,
All right.
ladies.
All right, wonderful. So welcome to the virtual classroom. Our goal is to present to you just like you would see it from our students' point of view. So Megan and I are teaching the K4 role. And so I am doing 2nd grade normally. I am a 3rd grade teacher at Webb Elementary. And Megan is an instructional coach. But we kind of took on these instructional roles for the virtual classroom this year. And we really want to kind of present to you what that looks like. Because I think a lot of people think it's e-learning, and it is a lot different than e-learning that we saw last spring. So just to give you an idea, we have our K through 6 virtual classroom, and we actually serve 255 students. Just to give you a comparison, that's between 7 teachers, and we have 263 students at my homeschool, which is Webb. So we're servicing a lot of our Franklin community.
And our learning objectives for the evening, just as we would share with students, they are to understand a day in the life of a K through 6 virtual student, in addition to a K through 6 virtual teacher. Understand how the virtual environment aligns with FCS guiding principles and, of course, our great instruction model. And understand, like Mrs. Ray said, the difference between e-learning and what we do in virtual learning.
So this is a schedule on the right. You'll see Thursday, March 4th. This is what my students see when they log on to Google Classroom. And it looks like a lot, but that's broken up into different live instruction models. So instead of logging on and seeing 3 tasks that they're going to do in e-learning, we're actually online the majority of the time live for instruction. So they're getting an 8:30 to 9 o'clock morning meeting. They're having that calendar circle time, still interacting with their peers. They're getting live ELA instruction. That's going to be in guided reading groups, working in pairs. They're getting live math instruction, and they're still getting their high ability services, their special ed services, and their small group help sessions and their title services.
And this is an example of my Google Classroom and an example of a schedule from grades 3 and 4, again, with a heavy emphasis on live instruction. The decision was made early on that ELA and math content for grades 3 and 4 would be split between myself and Miss Melissa McCain. And that was just due to learning new curriculum in a short period of time, and also having to juggle social studies and science integration, PE, art, music, and STEM. So students meet in a live whole group setting for the daily morning meeting. They rotate through 4 workshops that include small group live instruction and collaboration. And then we also spend our afternoons engaging in interventions and enrichment through live high ability instruction, live special ed services, live title services, live title progress monitoring, and live small group help sessions. And I'd also like to highlight on the schedule that we do offer opportunities for students for lunch and recess. And then one of my favorite parts of the day is actually the 2 o'clock questions and clarifications teacher hour, if you will, where students can pop in voluntarily and tell us what they need for help.
So we have clear learning objectives just like you'd see in the regular classroom setting. They're going to be presented each morning during our morning meeting time. And really, the virtual world is where we need our most team building. We see that team building and collaboration and that safe environment is important in the in-person classroom, but it's even more so in a virtual classroom where you're bringing together 5 schools into one classroom. And so we have themed days. Last week for Dr. Seuss week, we were all out in Dr. Seussville and dressed up and having fun in our virtual classroom. We do that for any holiday. We still have our virtual parties. We're really trying to make it the closest thing to an in-person environment for them. So at the K-1-2 level, you're going to see morning meeting with calendar. We're still singing calendar songs. We're still cheering and singing happy birthday. We're marking down in our calendars when somebody loses a tooth. It's that same collaboration, that same environment that's really exciting for our students. And we feel like that's an important part of the virtual community because some of these students are not interacting with peers outside of their online community. And so we want them to have a chance to feel like they can be heard and they can have fun. And that morning meeting time, we play games, we sing songs, and it's just really a time for them to interact with peers that they maybe can't do so as much right now.
Yeah, and big kids can have fun too. So just as she said, building community in the virtual environment definitely brings challenges, but it can certainly be done, and we have proven that. Live morning meeting is used not only to just introduce the day's schedule or the objectives, and also to take attendance, but it's also used for us as a time for togetherness and just to build that culture as a family. It's a time when student voices are heard and we aren't always talking academics, and it's okay. We talk, we laugh, we share, all with social emotional learning goals in mind, because this is different and this is challenging. So in 3rd and 4th grade, we have our class mascot that you can see on the screen. His name is Goog, and he's from the planet L. And I'll pause for a second for you to get that one. He's Goog from the planet L. But he shows up from time to time. He's got his own profile and login. So he shows up on our morning meets to teach us different things. And our class norms are actually written around his greeting from his planet, which are Lurler. And we have themed morning meetings, just like Mrs. Ray said. And students can complete a Google form to even share on a morning meeting for Motivational Monday, Talented Tuesday, Wellness Wednesday, Thankful Thursday, or our favorite Funny Friday to share jokes. We have Spirit Days, and we collaborate using Google Jamboard, and we gather feedback on morning meeting through polls. We love gathering live data during the morning meeting.
So what does a modeling and teaching and demonstrating look like in the virtual world? It's going to really look similar to what you would see in the classroom. So the K-1-2 level, if you were in my ELA classroom, you would have a small group mini lesson or a whole group mini lesson on the carpet. Then we're going to go practice that same skill in small groups or with partners. And then we're going to come back together and talk about how we've been doing. That's exactly what we do in the virtual classroom through the utilization of breakout rooms and small group work and the workshop model like Ms. Green talked about. So my students are going to come in for a live reading lesson. We're going to have a whole group introduction. They're going to break out into a small group with my virtual assistant and myself. We're going to still do instruction models. Then they can go do close reading work with a partner. They can come back and I can pop in and give immediate feedback on what they're learning.
And I feel as if I might be a part-time engineer with all the problem solving that has been done to get to this point in the area of teaching, modeling, and demonstrating. But I'm there, and students, parents, and teachers are loving our upper level workshop schedule. And I truly, truly, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank you for the virtual assistant that we have been given, because this would not be possible without them. We could not pull this off without them. And we know that the smaller groups for the instruction are better for everyone. So students in 3rd and 4th grade are engaged in 4 workshops daily, which could be compared to stations or centers in a classroom. These include both live instruction and are also blended with our next step in the instructional model of practice.
So again, thank you for our instructional assistants. With our numbers being where they are in the virtual world, it has made a world of difference, because we can actually give that guided practice, that modeling, and that small group instruction to students that we weren't able to do. So with our guided practice, we love utilizing different tech tools, and I would be safe to bet that I have some 2nd graders that could knock your socks off with technology and could run circles around some of us in a Google Meet. They know how to use Jamboard, which you can see we're sticky noting, we're giving immediate feedback, and we can read each other's notes. We love our new Wonders curriculum. The online aspect of our Wonders curriculum is amazing. It gives students that guided practice, the chance to truly practice skills that I'm teaching, and without me supplementing 60 million different activities. We love using the breakout rooms, as we talked about. Students who don't get to interact with peers are now able to go into a small group, and they are doing close reading together, just like you would see if you walked into an in-person classroom. So we are really using those instructional tools to guide our practice and really make sure we can give immediate feedback, which is amazing for these students.
And in addition to that, some of the things that we use in the 3-4 world, of course, our Everyday Math and Wonders online platforms are amazing, and we use those very often. Of course, Jamboard, we're using Canvas for them to take documents that are right out of their books that they have purchased, that they're able to annotate over those online. We use our corporation subscriptions to Scholastic News, Reading Counts, Scholastic Go for research, Epic Books, Mystery Science. There are so many things available to us in addition to our curriculum for guided practice.
So when it comes to the virtual world and checking for understanding, we of course are still using our formative assessments with Everyday Math and the Wonders curriculum. We want to be consistent with what they're getting in person so that when they make that transition back next year, it's pretty smooth. But we also have to keep it interesting and engaging. And so that's where we actually have a lot of fun in the virtual world, coming up with projects that can help students demonstrate their knowledge on a skill or a subject matter in a creative way. And so some of those in the K-1-2 world are we're working on geometry. Well, it's really hard to teach geometry to students when they don't have those figures right in front of them like they would in the virtual classroom. So instead, we're going on scavenger hunts in our house to find cubes and cylinders, and we're singing and dancing to those songs as we go find them. We're creating geometry creatures out of recycled goods that you can find in your house, but instead of doing a worksheet on it, we're creating, and we're now finding the edges, the vertices, the faces, and we're numbering those. One of my favorites when I came back from Christmas break was our hot cocoa project. And so we're actually working on 2-digit add-ins, and the students were running their own hot chocolate stand, adding and creating a hot chocolate stand menu, and they had to stay within a budget. And we had some really cool, they then got to design their hot cocoa project or their stand. And you can see it, one of our little friends here even put a screenshot of himself behind his hot cocoa stand. Super fun and creative. And we just love kind of blending that environment where they have technology, but they're still authentic audiences. So especially important with writing. K-1-2, it's hard to get kids to want to write, and we have some awesome writers in this world, but they don't have an authentic audience. They're not presenting it to someone. So introducing Flipgrid to them where they can record and read their writing has been awesome. Our students are able to give each other feedback. They do book reviews for each other instead of a traditional book report or maybe just a reading log. Nobody wants to fill out a reading log, but it's a lot of fun if I can get on camera and tell you about my book and why I liked it. So really just creating those authentic audience experiences for assessments has been awesome.
And it's probably not often that you hear a teacher say that their favorite part of this grade instruction model is assessment, but this is probably my favorite slide. For those of you that don't know me well, I can tell you 3 really quick facts about me. I love technology, I love learning new things, and I love challenges. And yeah, we have all of those curriculum assessments that she said, like the everyday math and the wonders, and we use those, and we can monitor progress with those. But and we do use DIBELS, and we do use NWEA in the virtual environment as well, just like the building teachers. But yeah, we want the engagement, we want the authentic learning, we want the evidence of the learning. And for those of you that are familiar with the SAMR model of technology, we want to move past just because we're virtual learning. Substituting isn't the best for us. We want to do better than that. We don't want to just use Google Docs instead of paper and pencil and just substitute. We actually want to move up the model, and we want to engage our kids in collaborating and sharing with a global audience. And this technology has made those possibilities really endless. The Wonders curriculum, I just can't say enough about it with the science and social studies integration. We've used bookcreator.com to create online books of special people for our biography studies or animals for an animal adaptation project. We still bring in STEM. As you can see here, there's a paper airplane outdoor challenge earlier this fall when the weather was nice. And then even when the weather wasn't so nice, we did area and perimeter in the snow. So that was fun. Giving kids choice boards and letting them choose their product. Do they want to pretend like they're in National Geographic, Explorer, giving a segment on a new animal and its adaptations? Or do we go to Canva and we create postcards of the landmarks and monuments that we learned about in Wonders? So, we just love projects in the virtual world and love the tech tools that are available to us.
And then we just want to come for full circle and kind of show you how the virtual world is still connecting to our guiding principles. And so individual student growth, we touched on this. Our special ed services and accommodations are being met for each one of our virtual learners. We are having high ability content taught in all of our K through 6 environment. We're still doing differentiated level instruction through our DIBELS assessments and NWEA assessments in our Wonders and Everyday Math series. We're getting live interventions, progress monitoring, all receiving those services through our instructional coaches and our classroom teachers. And like we said, we have those live help sessions as well. The big thing is communication. I will tell you, as a teacher, I have never communicated so much in my life with parents and stakeholders in education. I am sending messages, I am contacting, I am speaking face-to-face in a Google Meet with parents daily to make sure that we're on the same page and helping our students. And on top of that, our K-6 virtual teachers, or K-4 virtual teachers are interacting with 5 principals weekly or regularly to ensure that we're all on the same page and communicating and working well together. So a lot of communication between teachers, between administration and teachers and families.
And we could say the same for the following 3. We continue to improve. I know I mentioned that I almost feel like an engineer in the problem-solving process, but we too participate in PLC groups. Not only do we participate in a PLC group with the other virtual teachers, but we have 5 schools of grade level teams that we can collaborate with. So we are not only involved in trying to be better in those PLC groups and having those discussions based on data and student achievement with not only just the virtual team, but also our grade level teams in all of the 5 buildings. We also continue to send out parent surveys, send out student surveys. We ask them what they think about our schedule. We ask them what they think about our workload. We want their feedback. We want to get better. And as far as collaboration, absolutely. The students are doing it. The teachers are doing it. The parents are doing it. This is truly a partnership. When you get to the last one of trust, I don't know how much deeper you can go when we are inviting them into our homes and they are inviting us into theirs. I don't think you can go any deeper. We are in their homes every day and they are in turn in ours. So we trust each other.
And last, we just want to tie it to our mission, our vision, and our belief connections. So really, the virtual classroom may be different, but essentially we're providing these students life skills, technology skills, and they're still receiving that great instruction that they would receive in person. The virtual classroom setting has proven that FCS is student-centered, it's innovative, and it allows students to engage in learning a different way this year, and they're still doing it, and they're rocking it, and they're building those relationships with their peers and their teachers, and even from their own home.
Thank you both so much. If you would, hang out for a little bit if our tech folks are okay with it. We're going to have Mrs. Wilson and Mr. Rose go ahead and share the 7 through 12, which is a different structure. I want to just make sure I'm clear. K through 6 looks very similar to what Megan, oh, are they still there? Can they hear us?
Yeah, we're here.
Oh, okay.
We're
We
here.
just can't see you.
Yeah.
Oh, Megan and Carolyn just talked about, but 7 through 12, we're using our Apex system. We've been using it at the high school for a number of years. We're using it 7 through 12 this year as part of the virtual environment. So it looks a little different. So Mrs. Wilson and Mr. Rose, if you would please, they're with us in person.
So I'm Ann Wilson. I am the Apex coordinator at the middle school. That's my hat for this year. I've been in the school corporation for many years. All our children have gone through this corporation. Before I start talking about the Apex program, I really want to talk about the power of a coach. Because when I told Dr. Warland that I would be a coordinator for the Apex program, and the conversation was over, I felt like a first-year teacher. There was a moment where I thought, well, I really don't know what I'm doing. I became quite anxious, uncertain. I had no idea what Apex was. And everything changed when someone said, call Dawn Geisler. That's the second time tonight we've mentioned this teacher. She was amazing. And anxiety and uncertainty left me quickly. And she was there for my first day, for my first week, and she's still there for some hard questions. So just a little bit of having a coach helped me get through this first year of Apex. Apex. For our program, I too think about the guiding principles. And an email came from Dr. Warland, and she said, to make it successful, we really have to collaborate, and we have to make connections. Individual student growth, that's easy for me. I don't do it. Apex does, so I don't get much credit for the individual student growth. But to make a virtual program work, collaboration on my team, there are 3 of us. My colleague, Mandy Walls, who wears a lot of hats this year, helps me run the Apex program. She's a good sounding board. And then my other, the attendance secretary, April Brandon, has really helped. And I can't imagine a harder job than to be an attendance secretary in a virtual world with adolescents. But we make it work. Connections. It's hard, but it's doable. So the obvious, phone calls, emails, Google Classroom, with parents and with students. Another powerful connection that I have used more and more this semester is GoGuardian. It is real time. So you have students in GoGuardian, and if you're worried about their progress, or you actually want to congratulate them for doing well, I've got them right there. I just start a chat. And it's been amazing to pull students in, and they're like, oh, Mrs. Wilson, or oh, Mrs. Wilson. But no matter what it is, I'm there, and I'm saying, hey, love to meet you. Check your email. I'm sending a link right now. It has changed my world as connecting with these kids. So my virtual world is these students have 4 classes they have to take. Obvious English school, 3 hours. And when they are done with a class, we can always assign another class. And that's very powerful, especially for our 8th graders, because Mr. Martin has opened up the door to taking APEX classes that are required by the high school. Very motivating for our 8th grade APEX students. So they are working, many of them are working hard to finish up a core subject so they can take something else. And I'm going to close with something funny, just a virtual life. So this came from Mrs. Walls, and it was one of her students who was in her high ability English language arts, and he showed up late to a Google Meet. And so she did ask him, you know, we were worried. You weren't at the meet. Is everything okay? And he said, well, Mrs. Walls, when I went to the computer, the cat was in the chair and it hissed at me and I didn't know what to do. So, so you know, we never know what's going on the other end. And it's important to listen and to be with them and to support them in any way we can. So that is my world as an APEX teacher at the middle school. And now Eric Rose is going to talk more about what it looks like at the high school.
Well, I'm actually kind of disappointed because it's not as much fun as the elementary schools have. Oh my gosh. But it really, the APEX system is much better suited to the sullen world of high schoolers. And so what we do, well, actually, as Ann was talking about, the situations, APEX is very self-guided. And so our students are working on their own most of the day. Now, as our students are working on this, and I had a couple slides that show some numbers, I don't know if those are available or not. But as our students are working each day, what we've told them in their contract is that they will be working from 8:30 to 2:30, they will be working on their APEX. We want them to match up with the same hours that we have at the school. That's really so that the teachers are available to help the students themselves. The other thing that allows us to do is to track attendance. As Ann said, attendance is a total nightmare in APEX. The problem is that the APEX system doesn't marry up very well with our Power School system for the actual, it doesn't marry up well with the Power School system for attendance. So within the high school, what we have is a group, well, I'm the only full-time teacher for APEX. Then we have 5 teachers that have different portions of their day shared in APEX. So any day we have, on average, about the labor of 3 teachers working on APEX through each day. We also have a special services teacher who's working with our IEP students and helping them, whether it's accommodations or it's making sure that they have access to the information or building schedules for them. Because APEX is self-guided, those schedules become very helpful for some students. The other side is we've got 2 teaching assistants that help us at the high school. One is working solely on attendance, and he can work a full day checking attendance because we had to build our attendance into a morning and an afternoon session because about 25 of our students are also C9 students. So we want to make sure that we know that they're on Apex when they're not at C9. So every day we are checking everyone's attendance twice. The other thing that we're doing is we're checking their attendance not by whether or not they answered a question like we typically would have done with e-learning, but instead we're going into every one of their accounts and verifying that they're making progress that day. The problem we had with answering questions was that people could have perfect attendance and never make progress. So what we've done instead is we've thrown the labor into it to make sure that they're actually making progress. Doesn't always work, but it's a lot better than not. Beyond that, just some, I can see the slide from here. I don't know if you guys can, so I'll read it to myself. We currently have 224 students in this semester. Last semester, we ended up with 235 by the end of the semester. Our big push and our big problem, though, is that we actually offer 85 different courses in Apex. It's because we have, over 224 students, we have probably about 222 different paths that people are following. And so up till it was about 1,900 individual classes had been enrolled since the beginning of the year, but over the weekend I put another couple hundred in, so we're up over 2,000 individual classes have been enrolled. You can flip to the next page if you would. The teachers in Apex are really what are making it possible. Because while these classes are self-guided, the teachers have to stay involved because first, Apex is set up so that if you get to the end of a unit, you take a test. Makes sense. The only thing is that we can't let them into the test automatically through the program. At every end of unit, they have to request that the test be unlocked, and that unlock is timed by the program, so the student has to start the program or the test within 10 to 15 minutes or it relocks and they can't get into it. So to accommodate that, every day we have, yeah, I know, you're shaking your head no, and it's like, yeah, it is a mess. We started off trying to do that via email, bad choice. We then quickly transitioned to every day we put in 4 hours of Google Meet. So from 9 to 11 and 1 to 3 every day, we have a teacher in a Google Meet that is just there to open tests. And on a typical day, they'll do about 10 an hour or so, 40 a day. On a big week like last week, at the end of 9 weeks, we'll do 400 tests in a week where we open it so that the students can get in. The other side is quiz unlocks. Now, the quizzes in Apex are automatically opened for the students. They don't have to do anything unless they score less than 70%, which does occasionally happen a lot. And so when a quiz gets locked, what happens is a teacher has to go in and unlock that quiz. Now, we've semi-automated that so that the students put their request in a Google form. During the day, it's usually almost instantaneous. The longest I've seen a quiz sit and need to be unlocked was about 15 minutes during the day. But since it's in a Google form, we actually know about how many we've done, and we have unlocked over 5,000 quizzes since the beginning of the year. Wow. And so that is continuously going on. And meanwhile, we've also got one section that we didn't know when we first got in. There are a lot of teacher-graded assignments and tests in Apex. So our teachers, beyond just the unlocks and the time that they spend in the Google Classroom getting acquainted with the students that they don't see otherwise, the teachers also have to grade usually 2 to 5 assignments per class that's taken by a student. So to date, we've done somewhere around 1,500 of those teacher-graded assignments that are not automatically, which makes sense because I don't really want a computer grading my kid's English test. If they're writing a paper, the computer's probably going to grade it the wrong way. Beyond that, we have a lot of interaction within the building here. I spend conversations most every day with the guidance counselors because they're continuously watching what's going on, and we're always watching for students that are slipping through the cracks. Sometimes we're able to recover those credits, sometimes we can't. Additionally, we have a large number of calls and emails from parents and students, particularly wanting to know, why was my kid counted absent yesterday? Because what we found is it's possible to accidentally mislead your parents and make them think that you were working on Apex because the screens all look very similar. But what the students find out after about the second time it happens is we actually have a log of every minute-by-minute action that they've taken in Apex. And really, it doesn't take but sending that to the parents once before that conversation just kind of disappears. So Apex has been a very good tool for us. It is not the push a button and it happens kind of program that we hoped. It has a lot of actual hands-on work that's required. Additionally, we do have one really amazing thing that has happened and has shown itself, is that I'm going to estimate 20% of our students are thriving in the Apex curriculum. And what's amazing to me is these are not necessarily the students that thrive in the building. And that's where it gets exciting, because the students that are thriving in Apex have often been distracted in the building. I had a conversation with one mother last semester, which kind of typified the whole situation for me. We had a student on an IEP who has struggled through the past few years, or for his entire high school career. I had a conversation with his mom. I just called her up and said, hey, I wanted to let you know that he's doing great. Just really exemplary how he's gotten ahead of stuff. He's made up for lost credits that he lost in previous years, and he's just really on a good path. And she paused, and I thought I had said something really wrong. She paused and said, you know, I've never gotten a call from the school that was telling me my kid's doing great. So as we go forward, wherever Apex goes from here, hopefully with no pandemic, we will definitely, we've been able to create a system now that can be used to offer and target certain students better than we have before. So we've learned a lot. It's caused a lot of pain and grief, but it could also change some lives going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Do you have any questions for the four of them?
I just want to thank everybody, because I know we're in, doing things that's never been done before, so I appreciate you guys giving us a look at what a day in life is in elementary and at the middle and high school, so thank you very much. One question I was going to have for you guys is, and maybe you're already doing this, but there's clearly some lessons learned over this past year. I'm sure we're doing things much better today than we did, let's say, at the beginning of the school year. But are we going to take some time to pause again and see, okay, well, what kind of improvements do we need to make for going forward? Is that part of something you guys are going to do?
Actually, those steps have already started.
Okay.
Pausing, asking, investigating, change delta process, pros and cons. So you will hear more and more about some of those conversations and reflections over the next few months.
Great.
So great question, thank you.
Thanks.
So is this something we're going to offer next school year for like K through 6? So it will
Yes.
continue?
Something.
Yeah, we will be offering some type of virtual space K to 12. You know, I think we're in an era now where, as Eric said, and all the teachers can say, we've had a group of kids that have done really well. We've had some that's really struggled. Let's be clear. It's been a hard journey for some of these kids. And so we will have a space, we'll continue to talk about that. It actually segues into the strategic plan where we talk about alternative learning spaces for us. And so we will be doing something, and we'll have more of that information with Dr. Worland coming forward about the next steps and kind of following our journey of systemic improvement and kind of plan, do, study, adjust. But yep, virtual's here. I will say kudos to the state legislature. They realize it's a space we have to play in, and they are fully funding it. Both in 2021, and if you look at what's being proposed in the budget, they are saying let's fund virtual because we know it's part of school's journey.
just happen to think, one of the things that Eric said that really kind of hit home is making sure that we do identify those at-risk students. I mean, I know I'm sure you're doing the best you can, but is there more we could do? Is there, maybe you've learned something that maybe there's a pattern that you can pick up on that, I don't know what it'd be, but it would be nice to be able to have some concerted effort on what that looks like so we can catch those,
There are some common situations with at-risk students, and a lot of them are very, very much tied to parent involvement.
Okay.
Within the virtual side, you need to have a strong parent involvement for it to really work well.
Okay. I'd just like for you guys to spend some time on looking into that. And
When on that vein, Brian, we have already pulled the students that we are concerned about over the course of really since COVID started, where we need to do some credit recovery work. So at the high school, we're going to target that this summer. We're also developing our summer program K through 8. We haven't traditionally offered summer school 5 through 8, but we are going to this summer to target those students that we think maybe have experienced some of the learning loss.
Great.
That we're worried about, some of those at-risk students you've mentioned.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're identifying them as early as we can. I know you're one person, and I'm sure everybody's looking at it, but.
I also want to give a shout out to, in the elementary world, the 5 elementary counselors. They have tag teamed and kind of divided themselves among, like, each counselor takes a grade level, and they have really been there to support us. So I just want to give a shout out to all 5 elementary counselors that have been there for us and supported us and our students, us as teachers and our students when we have needed it. So shout out to them. They kind of do a divide and conquer for our elementary virtual world.
And you've probably picked up on it from some of the things these amazing people have said. It has not always been an easy journey. And so I want to thank all 4 of these individuals. I want to thank your colleagues who have joined you. Excellent work. Thank you for stepping up, accepting the challenge, and really just leading our students and showing them what perseverance is, what excellence looks like. So thank you. And thanks to the board for your support of those efforts and ongoing conversations.
I love seeing it. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Just as Megan closes about the counselors, Millie has actually met some of the virtual students in person. She's gone to a couple homes through some activities. She had cookies at one home. And so the kids are getting to experience what their peers are experiencing inside of a regular building. So I get goosebumps from the things we're doing about some of these things. And these teachers are amazing. They've done a phenomenal job, and just another example of why our teachers are just outstanding.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being here, everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much. Love to see that.
All right, Mrs. Gross, again, you have a topic to follow. I don't know why we keep doing that to you, but
I
I want you to, match what we just heard.
Bring cookies.
Who sets this agenda? I always have to follow the cool stuff with boring accounting work. So about a year ago, the board approved a contract with Hartman and Williams to come in and do an audit of our extracurricular accounts in the buildings. So thank you for that. Obviously, it's taken a while due to the COVID delays, but we finally completed that a couple weeks ago, and they issued their report. And I was able to put together kind of a 1.5-page executive summary. In their report, they listed all the findings out by building. So the auditor and I have met with the building treasurers and the principals and gone over each of the findings in their building. I think they really appreciated the review and feedback. It had been several years since the State Board of Accounts had looked at those accounts, so it was a good experience to go through. In summary, it was a great audit report. We had no significant findings, No big red flags. You know, it was mainly what I call tick-tacky things, missing signatures, a missing form here and there, maybe a posting error that was actually caught by us in the reconciliation process. So nothing alarming at all. I'll highlight a couple of the findings. We have pre-numbered tickets for events that we sell, and we have pre-numbered receipts that we provide to Cub Care and Cub Academy parents. The auditor emphasized that those need to be used in sequential order, and make sure that we can account for all those. So that was something that came up. And then we've got a couple of bonds that need to be increased. The treasurers at the middle school and high school handle a lot more money than they historically have. So we will work with our insurance carrier to increase their bonding in the next couple of weeks. And then one internal control finding was with Cub Care, we collect those funds. Each day they funnel into the assistant for Cub Care, and she does all the reconciliation and counting of the money and depositing into the bank. So we need to incorporate someone independent into that process. So we've already gotten that corrected, and we've got somebody else counting that cash just to provide better controls. So thanks again for allowing us this to happen, and I think we have a good plan going forward.
Thanks, Tina. All right, we'll move to action items, our superintendent's strategic plan.
Yeah, thank you. Last month, we had the presentation of our plan and kind of the first steps into that. And I would ask the board at this time to approve the 2021 to 2030 strategic plan. One thing to note, it's a living document. It's something that will change. But as we saw in the transformational map at the very last slide, those are the first steps that we're talking about. An alternative school is one of the very first things we're looking at in that educational space for our students. And so we are excited about this journey. We had over 80 people participate, and it was a robust conversation. And so with that, I would ask for the board's approval of our plan, please.
Any questions for Dr. Clendeni?
When will the subcommittees start their work?
We will begin later this spring and heading into the summer. Like we have one on looking at efficiencies. Obviously, we have some looking at alternative school spaces. And then middle school, high school teaming is actually going to start next fall. And then for mine, looking at 10X, Explorer Choice, and retention, recruitment is going to start later this spring. And we will have a representation of both parents and faculty and administrators on the subcommittees to help guide.
I'll move for approval.
Thanks, Brian.
That's second.
Thank you. Brian, how you vote?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I vote yes, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move into the discussion section. First one is our teacher applicant pre-screening.
Thank you. Mrs. Bright's going to work her way up here. Back in 2010-11, we brought forth a product called Ventures. It was a pre-screener where we would look for that candidate who was student-centered. And it was early foray into our systemic improvement and the process structure for hiring people. It is time now for us to continue to think about, is that the best resource? And if it is, great, but if it's not, what do we do next? And so I asked Mrs. Bright to lead a thorough process and review, and she's here to report out on that.
Hi, thank you for taking a few minutes to listen this evening. That was my introduction, so I'll just skip to the next slide. That's fine. So again, to kind of reiterate, we have been using HumanX is the name of the company, and the process is called the venture screening process. It's actually a little bit, well, I'll take a step back before I get into that. So like Dr. Glendenning said, we have been using this product for a few years. He actually brought it with him when he came here to Franklin Schools. And over the course of time, it's served us well. And the idea behind it was to really have a intentional kind of process behind our hiring. So everybody was supposed to go through this process and the outcome, and it was data driven and all of those kinds of things. So it had really good legs, and it served us well. And in general, the purpose of a pre-screening tool, when you think about applicants and you think about recruiting and hiring, there are some listed there, but it does provide a systematic approach to hiring the best available talent in the market. It provides data to all the hiring managers based on really rigorous recruiting and hiring research. And a pre-screening tool allows for hiring managers to see not only kind of an overall view, but hopefully strengths and weaknesses of individual candidates without that potential of implicit bias. So our current process is kind of twofold. One, the style profiler is a question and answer session that every single teacher applicant gets right now when they go on to AppleTrack and they complete an application. And at the end of that, they have a student-centered versus a teacher-centered number. And everyone who goes through the process should have that. So that's the first thing that principals and hiring managers should be looking at when they start looking through those applications. And a long time ago, when we brought the process here, Dr. Glendenning set parameters around what's ideal for student-centered versus teacher-centered. So obviously, we want them to be a little bit more student-centered than teacher-centered. So everyone goes through that process. But the second piece of this is the actual phone interview. So ideally right now, principals and hiring managers are going through and they're looking at the applications and they're identifying those student-teacher applicants. And then they're narrowing that down to, I don't know, maybe 5 to 6 that they're really interested in, and they're setting up venture interviews with them, which is a 52-question process. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour unless you get the right candidate. And I've had them done in like 30 minutes before, but that's kind of a rarity. But about 45 minutes usually. And then that should really be telling you, okay, this is maybe the 3 candidates out of the 5 or 6 that I interviewed that I would be bringing in for a face-to-face interview. And the next slide kind of walks through that in a little bit more detail. So at the end of a venture screen, they're going to have a score of either green, yellow, or red. And so in that process, we're really looking at those candidates as just, yes, green is somebody we want to bring in and talk to, yellow is a maybe, and a red is typically somebody that we're not going to bring into the fit interview. Another piece of this process that isn't up here is that we are part of a large consortium group. And so over the years, this consortium kind of got together and said, this would be great if we could share candidates. And we're all going to do this same process. We're all going to use HumanX, and we're all going to venture. And they're not really as much. We've had a couple of folks in the consortium actually pull out completely. Danville is no longer. Clark Pleasant is no longer using the venture process. So we're really not getting the full benefit of that consortium plan. So that kind of led us to the opportunity to examine a new tool. And so through the examination period and doing some research, well, let me back up. So why should we examine a new tool? Including the fact that it is lengthy and burdensome and time-consuming. We also find ourselves in very last-minute hiring decisions, particularly over the summer. And so what happens then is typically we're going through the process, we're interviewing folks in person, and then saying, oh, I didn't get this person ventured, but I've already offered the job. So it becomes a little bit more of a formality in those last-minute kind of hiring decisions. Again, the consortium is not actively participating. Right now, we only have 5 district employees who are even trained to do the venture screenings, and That's a very lengthy 2-day process to get somebody trained. It's also very expensive, which I'll kind of show you at the end. And again, it only results in a green, yellow, or red score, which does not exactly highlight, some insight into the candidate's strengths and weaknesses. So we wanted to find something that obviously continued to fit and align with the Franklin Schools guiding principles, because Ventures really did that very well. And so through the course of looking at other opportunities, I came up to frontline assessments. So frontline fit assessments, if you want to go to the next slide. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping. Frontline is actually a product and a vendor that we currently use. So Frontline is our vendor for AppleTrack and also for absence management, otherwise known as ASOP. So it's really just an add-on tool to kind of what we have. So it's not a brand new vendor or anything like that. And they actually offer what's called a fit assessment. These are specifically designed to improve the probability of inviting the best applicants to the interview process. They actually brought together a team of specialists, and they have experience in education and other industries too, and really went through a rigorous testing and validation reliability study on these questions. This is the part I love. So everyone will get this. When you go to AppleTrack to apply, you will immediately be pushed to complete this online assessment. They have them for teachers. They have them for special education teachers, teachers in an urban setting, and they also have them for classified staff and administrators too. So we're really looking at the certified life right now, but there are other options as well. And so every single person that goes to our website is going to automatically go through this assessment. So immediately we are taking out any kind of opportunity for bias that may be, as we're looking at people and those kinds of things. So I also love the way it aligns with the work that we're trying to do right now with the cultural and diversity inclusion committee too. So these are the dimensions of the teacher fit assessment. And like I said, I think that they align still very nicely with our guiding principles. And at the end, you get 2 reports, a summary report and an interview report. So the summary report is a table with a graph of a score for each of those dimensions, and then you also get an overall dimension. And then the interview table goes a little bit more into each of those subcategories, into each of those dimensions, and talks about, actually even gives you opportunities for interview questions that you may want to ask a candidate to kind of look at some of those weaknesses that they might have, because they may not be actually weaknesses, they actually may be strengths in a way, depending on the building. So this is just a real quick glance. This is kind of what the candidates see when they go on to the application and apply. So there are kind of a combination of scenarios, statements, and multiple choice options for depending on the actual test that you're taking. And then the next one shows the representation of scores in each of the categories. So you're going to notice this is a bell curve. And so 4, 5, and 6 are going to be your most common scores. So that's where the majority of your applicants are going to fall, and the highest being 9, right? So I think they said 4% of candidates score in that 9 range. So those are that's kind of where we would be looking at our candidates to make sure that they're going to be a fit. Again, some scores being lower, some scores being higher, but what does that overall score kind of look like? And then being able to really dive into what a low score in a certain dimension might look like for your building or your grade level, or even your content area if there's something that you might be missing or looking for specifically. And then these are just sample score reports so you can kind of see what the principals would see. And the interviewer report is where they give you some sample interview questions for some of those dimensions that might be lower. And then on the next page, you'll just see kind of what it looks like when you go to an overall application page. So that would be everybody that applied for a specific position, and you can sort by score. So you can actually sort highest to lowest and see that really quickly. Also, regarding the work that we're currently doing with our Diversity Inclusion Committee, this is data around the EEOC Adverse Impact Review And you can see there in the levels, in those 4, 5, and 6 scores, those mid-range scores on that bell curve, that there are no levels below the 80%, or the 4th, 5th rule for the EEOC. So that means that there is no implicit bias there with these tests, hopefully. And then finally, there's just a quick cost analysis between HumanX. Generally, the cost of HumanX is going to be a lot more expensive. But I think the biggest thing for me is the continual training with HumanX. Like I said, it's a 2-day training. It's very costly. The cost of the software every year is very costly too. And so we would be trading that out a little bit for another product to completely replace HumanX, save us time, help our hiring managers make the best hiring decisions that they possibly can with the information that they have at hand. And this is something that HumanX or that Frontline would actually help us train on, but there's much less of a learning curve here. You're basically saying, okay, look at the score, this is what it means, and here's some interview questions you can ask too. So hopefully this provides us with an opportunity to continue to screen people into our recruiting pipeline as opposed to out, and continue to find those best candidates for our classrooms, for our students.
So Mrs. Bright, one question. So you mentioned the process where they have a candidate come in over the summer, we do the interviews, so that's how they miss the HumanX. Is there a possibility that they're going to skip that front line? I mean, is there any way that we're going to still not take advantage of the new system?
Yes, I suppose that is a possibility, and we do see that sometimes in the event that, let's say a candidate reaches directly out to a principal and says, here's my resume, and the principal or the hiring manager says, I'd like to interview you. There's a potential that they've skipped our process completely, yes. However, I would always divert them back to that, because our application actually also includes some very important legal questions when it comes to things like background checks and disclosing things like that too. So I'm always going to revert back to that eventually. I suppose that could happen. I really have not. Typically, the principals know that the application is very important for a multitude of reasons.
Okay, thank you. Nice job on finding, looking for process improvement.
Thank you.
Mr. Lamb, just a couple things. Normally, since we already partner with Frontline and AppleTrack, this would be a consent agenda item. But because this was a change in complete structure for us in the hiring, I asked Mrs. Bright to present. One thing that I would ask is if the board is comfortable in hearing this for the first time and looking at it, if we could move forward, because with the spring, we're ready to start hiring some candidates. And we would be then able to let go of the ventures process and move into this process in a timely manner to get our principals trained, as well as that spring candidate, summer candidate. So if you're comfortable, I would ask that you move this to an action item tonight and allow us to move forward.
Do I have a motion for that proposal?
I will move that we move
To an
this
action item?
to an action item, yes.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Brian. Brian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
And Ryan?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so it now is an action item. So I'll move that we approve this to move forward. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Brian?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that passes. Mrs. Bright, thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michelle.
Great job and saved us.
All right, next item we have is the elementary handbook. Mrs. Dr. Worland.
Yes, I want to thank Dr. Hayden for his work on this project. I think every year he helps facilitate the handbook process for our elementary. So thank you to Dr. Hayden. You will see there a linked copy of the handbook as well as a summary of the changes. You will see those changes highlighted in yellow. And the first, with regards to report cards, has been a process we've piloted this year. It was motivated by COVID. And we decided to continue with that pilot as we're trying to direct families to online access where you can see students' grades in real time all the time. You can establish notifications. There are really some really cool parent tools out there, to be honest. And we're trying to encourage families to stay connected that way. So moving toward that electronic report card at all levels. Smoking policy, we've added the e-cigarettes and the vaping. You will also see the Title IX language that we've now added to our elementary handbooks to make sure that we're consistent across the district with that language and in compliance with the state law. Visitors at school, there was a change there as well to add that background check procedure as appropriate in the schools. And also just one of those lessons learned, I think maybe Brian, you were referencing earlier, that there are ways that we can get information to students and vice versa to families without having everyone track through the front offices all the time. And so just adding some of that language in there as well. And those are the only changes to the handbook for this year.
All right. Any questions from the board on that? All right. And Dr. Warren, we'll move on to the textbook adoption.
Yes, textbook adoption. Mr. Curry referenced this earlier. You will see we have the Japanese and the French and Spanish quotes attached. If you'll remember right, last year we made the decision to hold on social studies textbook adoption. We did go ahead and move world languages through. They are in currently the 7th year of their current adoption, so we did delay that for a year. We also, when you look at the adoption, you will note that we are continuing with our practice of purchasing the classroom sets, but we are purchasing the online version for our students. One of the nice things about world languages with the online version is that you can do a lot of listening and oral practice. It's highly interactive, which works really well for our world languages departments. We were very cognizant of cost. Matter of fact, we had that conversation, and that was one of the top 2 factors that we looked at, especially as we think about textbook rental. In April, you will receive the K-12 textbook rental and fees information for the 21-22 school year as well. Please keep in mind also that these are quotes for a 6-year adoption.
All right. Any questions from the board?
Where did you say social studies is? We pushed that off for another year?
It was supposed to be this year, and we pushed it off at this point for 1 year.
So have you started on it yet or no?
We have not.
Okay.
We would start next year if we maintain that schedule.
Got it.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Warren.
You're welcome.
Next item is our athletic website. Mr. Doty and Mrs. Betts. No? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb, and again, thank you to the board for allowing me a few more minutes of your time. I'll do my best to be as brief as I can.
Mr. Doty, could you move towards the microphone? Thank
All
you.
right, how's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, I will be as brief as I can here, but still get you the information that is relevant to hopefully making a decision eventually. I will be seeking your approval for the athletic department to enter into an agreement with VNN as our website, specific website administrator for the athletic department. I've talked to Robin Betts about this. Actually, this started a couple years ago, really, and what was probably 2 years ago this time of year, we had some cancellations of a contest. I made those cancellations in EventLink, which is the application that I use where all of our contracts are housed for games, contests, and those types of things. But what was on the website did not get changed, and there you can imagine some trouble that I got myself into because what is on EventLink doesn't necessarily get changed unless you actually go in and hand enter it. So moving forward to today, Robin and I actually tried, we've worked on several different occasions trying to improve what our audience sees on our website. We've got it to a decent point, but there's still room for improvement. And that's in the world, the domain of our guiding principle of communication. And really, the communicate and celebrate that you see on that slide is actually the VNN motto that they bring, and it's really in keeping with what is important to us. It's important to us across the district, especially so in the athletic department when we start communicating with what our audience sees and hears. That's a wide range of audience members, you know, the community, our players, our athletes, their parents, our other faculty members, our coaches, our staff. So we have obviously a broad audience there to communicate with and streamline that, but we also want to celebrate our student athletes as obviously you've seen tonight. So that's really what they do for us, and it really will make things, using this website will be more efficient, more effective for us, so that when you see those, what's in parentheses out there next to the word communicate, those are all applications or websites that I interact with, or the athletic department interacts with. The end user, our audience, should not have to, right? In this world that we live in, they shouldn't have to go out and necessarily interact to get the information they need in all those different places. How about one spot? And that's really what the athletic website would do for us. And it really, you know, this year more than any year is obviously, it's brought this forward to me with all of the changes that we've had to endure from scheduling, communicating about spectator limits and restrictions and all these things. It would have been so nice if I could have just directed you know, our audience to a location instead of trying to send things out in multiple mediums and make sure I hit everything that I need to hit. So it's really one entry point for our staff, but then obviously reaches out multiple outlets, allows coaches to interface with the website. Right now we do have a webmaster for the athletic department. That's Ray Lane. He is a wonderful teacher, educator here in our district, and he's wearing that hat for the athletic department as well. But it would also allow coaches to have access to the website and to do things on their team page, more so there's more efficient, more effective, because now more people are using it. The website is optimized, it's mobile optimized. Forms can be digitized on there, everything except for our physical form, which still needs a signature by that physician, right? But all other forms can be digitized, and then obviously that you can send those push notifications. You know, now I'm going to move on to the next slide. Actually, let's go back one. The VNN, the athletic, is it okay if I click on that? We're going to go out to Noblesville. The VNN, they are tailored to athletic departments. And so much so, I think I'd look on their website, but I think there's more than 250 schools actually use VNN as their athletic website administrator. And this is an example of Noblesville High Schools. You can see these are actually kids, student athletes of theirs, and that is specific to their website. And then you can see their pictures, and they're celebrating. They have video highlights. The ease of which this is done, and these are all done by coaches have that ability. Obviously, the athletic administrators would, but coaches have that ability to do this on their own and help celebrate kids, and then obviously communicate with each other. So that's just one example of a great website that what we would like to get to. What you see at the top, if I can scroll up.
Oh, that's what's her name?
Leah?
Yeah, she used to be our principal.
That was our principal.
Yeah, Leah is the athletic director there at this time, yes. Well, I thought there was a banner across the top. So,
There is
the,
on my,
I can see
We
it.
can see it, Bill.
The
can you see it? Okay, I
Yeah.
guess I can't see it for some reason. Okay. As we scroll, Natalie, if you would take us to our next slide, and we can come back to this. We talk about the cost of this. This is a very inexpensive website for us, for the athletic department. It would come out of our athletic funds to pay for this, but it's inexpensive because they sell advertising on there. And so that's a change from what is currently going on right with our own website. But the advertising is done so in concert with the school. We get to approve those advertisers or those sponsors. And as you can see, that was on Noblesville's website. They did have advertisers on there, but it wasn't big and bold. It wasn't about the advertisers. It was still about the kids and the website. So we get to approve those lists. We set up a marketing meeting with VNN. They would not go out and seek sponsorships from anyone that we would not, that's not in keeping with what our mission is at the athletic department, or with maybe we already have sponsorships from, let's say, obviously JMH is a great partner of ours. They would not go seek Franciscan Health to be on our athletic website, knowing that our sponsors, our partnership with JMH is so critical to us and important to us, right? So that's the kind of the feedback that we would be able to provide them and be able to move forward with that. There's also, the advertising on there does allow for a profit share with the athletic department from VNN to the athletic department, and we would set up that marketing meeting so that our current sponsors for the athletic department can then also be a part of the website as well. So it's a $695 annual agreement for the athletic department, one-time setup fee of $700. And then there again, if you want to click back onto that Noblesville website, there are, as I said, there's well over 250 high schools and middle schools that are a part of this that you can go out and search for and look at. This is just a great example of what we would like to be able to do in Franklin. So be happy to entertain any questions.
I have two questions.
Yep.
One, is this something that you want to move on tonight, that we would want to move forward, or?
Well, it would certainly help us if that's okay with the board, if there's, I understand it's a discussion item, but it would help us only in, it takes, once they get the agreement back from the school board, it takes them a couple weeks to build just the bones of that. We would send them photos and our logos, and so it takes them a couple weeks to make our website. And then I would really like to use our spring coaches. They don't know this yet. Use our spring coaches as some guinea pigs, so to speak. But really would like to have time for our spring coaches to use this so that we can work out any bugs that may exist throughout the spring and summer months, and then we really hit the ground running with next school year, that fall season, and really we'd be able to get registrations, student athlete registrations, parents signed up through the website as far as being users, and so it would just help us if it was approved tonight.
Yeah, that's why I asked the
But it
question.
doesn't have to be,
No,
I
that's why I asked the
understand.
question. Yeah,
You know,
sure.
so,
The other question is, do we have any control on how big that banner is? So for example, I'm looking at Noblesville, and that banner's taking up half my page.
Yeah, it's tacky. It's way too big.
Yeah, it doesn't look great. So do we have any control over?
that's a good question. I think that top banner is set. I can ask, that's a good question. I can find that out.
I mean, just looking at it here, I mean, all I can see is a quarter of the screen.
Yeah.
No,
Not-
No,
There's
well,
a-
there's
there's a
a,
banner right
is
there
it
at the
Don,
top.
is it an advertiser of
Yeah.
maybe Don Hines?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not showing up on what we
Yeah.
see right
You
now,
can't
so
move
I
past it
apologize for
either.
that,
Yeah.
but I know what you're talking about. I think those banner sizes at the top, are, based on the amount of sponsorship or the amount of advertising
Uh-huh.
paid. And so, you know, if you get to that certain level, if somebody pays for that, that would be the
I
size
mean,
of it.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't particularly, I think it's kind of obnoxious,
Yeah,
I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So, because I mean, I see more advertisement than I see content for the athletics right now.
Yeah, and that's on that main page, as you go to each team page, those do go away, I believe.
Well, I think that might be a good reason for us to do a little more research. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I know that he wants to, but if we could, we talked about this, I think Athletic Council, Andy, you guys have
Yep.
talked a little bit about this. But I think that's something we could get back, and we can even, you know, write about in Friday notes, to let you all know what we find. If that would work for everybody, because I do see what you mean. I'm actually going to another school to see what it looks like.
Mooresville, Decatur Central,
I'm on Alexandria's, and theirs is about half the size. Their banner's much smaller.
So just maybe it's based on, yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I
and
just wanna know more, because
No, that's a
I
good
don't,
question.
I wouldn't wanna have this the way it is right here, I'll be honest,
Right here it is.
so.
yeah, that's more
Yeah.
Yeah,
appropriate.
that's not so bad.
And we can set those parameters. I think you all can set those parameters. That's why it's coming.
And I'd wanna be able to see it also on the phone, what it looks like on the phone. I mean, maybe you've already done that, but I'd wanna test out that banner on the phone too.
Yeah, I will tell you, the mobile, being mobile optimized from a website is really slick.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
So you've
very
looked at
nice on your
that then,
phone.
good.
Yeah.
This is a lot better.
Well, Bill, if it's okay with you, I guess I would like to see us follow a normal process.
Yeah,
I know
sure.
we come back right after spring break. He can still get his athletes in. If it's okay with you, maybe he could get some of the legwork done with the website.
Yeah.
And just let them know, like, hey, it's not approved yet. But it still allows them to kind of build the infrastructure behind.
Yeah.
Get us to then have those questions, I can get them back and forth and go from there.
I will tell you, one of the big pushes for me was to, if I could get them to secure the domain name, and my thought was to have it the same as our Twitter account, which is, the Twitter is @GoGrizzlyCubs. If we could secure gogrizzlycubs.com,
Sure.
there again, keeping in all that, you know, hey, that's all I have to remember, those types of things. So that was another reason to try to get to that point.
Sure.
Maybe they would secure that for me in moving forward. Yeah,
All right,
so,
we can do that.
okay, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, Bill. All right, moving to the next item, we've got the board administrative comments. I'll open it up for the board. Is there any comments tonight?
The only question that I've had tonight is there a threshold for when the board needs to approve contracts? I mean, I don't want to micromanage Mr. Doty's stuff, and I feel like the amount of that contract was pretty low. So I'm just trying to figure out, when does stuff come and when does it not?
Yeah.
And maybe in the future, we have a process where I want to let people do their job. I don't want to.
By law, you guys have to sign the contracts.
My understanding that the school board has to approve all contracts.
$50, I mean, there's no,
Yeah, when you're obligating the public entity, public treasury, when you're guaranteeing to spend tax dollars, that's a function of the board.
so the board only, I mean, the school corporation is only signing 4 contracts a month, and we're seeing all of them?
I'm sorry? I didn't hear you.
So if 4 contracts come to the board, that tells me that the school corporation's only signed 4 transactions in a month?
You don't have to sign the contracts. You can delegate that administrative function to Dr. Clendevy. But the board has to approve the contract and authorize him to sign it, if not signed by the board.
I would be interested if there's any way to deputize some of that. I don't know.
I'm sorry?
I said I would be interested if there's a way to deputize that and authorize a certain threshold.
There are a number of court cases, actually, that go the other way, where a superintendent has signed a contract, which was not approved by the school. And the school declined to honor it, and the school won. It's black letter law. Contracts must be signed, must be approved by the school board. I mean, the law could possibly be changed, but under the current law, no, the board must approve the contract.
I think like example for Bill tonight, we have a website that we set up, did a lot of information searching around that. We're gonna allow Bill and his group to go off on their own. You know, that we may have then someone else come and say, hey, I want my own website. So part of this is that conversation. It really wasn't the cost, yes, but it's also information, so you all can answer that question like, why does athletic get to be different than, you know, the English department or whatever, something like that. So those are the steps that we've normally taken around that, but I do understand what you're saying.
Okay, any other comments from the board? All right, Dr. Clendenning, I'll open it to you for the administrative.
Really, we have nothing. We did highlight we are in phase 5. We'll continue to move forward. And spring break is starting on the 25th. And then do have a virtual coffee coming up on the 22nd at 5 p.m. And that's all we have at this point.
Very good. Open up for public comments. Anybody here in the room, if you have any comments, please step up to the podium. You got 2 minutes. Could be on any topic that we've covered tonight or in general.
Good evening. I'll make this brief. Before the pandemic, 55% of kindergarten students were on track in reading skills. This came from the February 24th assessment data that was released. And 55% were on track in reading skills. Now it is down to 37%. Figures for first graders are 58% before the pandemic. Now it is 43%. And I wanted to ask the question, would you continue to pay your mechanic if you fail to fix your car half the time? Would you go to a doctor who is only right half the time when diagnosing your medical issues? I know from personal experience a grandmother who had to take over teaching because the reading was not adequate. And now this grandmother is a retired school teacher, and now the granddaughter is doing much better. Since our tax money goes towards all these educational efforts, what's being done to address this? Thank you for your time.
I'm going to jump in and say a couple things, and then others are welcome to speak. I would say, well, first off, I would say that if I know the same story that you shared, which I may or may not, there is a difference between what we're doing now, especially in the virtual space or in the buildings, than what happened or what we were doing, I would say, for all districts across the country in March, April, May. I would also say a couple things. I think we're much better at delivering instruction, and we've seen a little glimpse of that tonight now than we were then. At least the story I'm aware of, Mr. Curry, was one that happened during the virtual time. I would say also we've enhanced using the data that we have. We have a couple of different assessments that we're using across the district. We've enhanced the intervention time that we're giving students. We've enhanced the amount of time we're spending on literacy, mathematics, just in the way we're scheduling across the district. We've also hired some additional instructional assistants through the CARES Act dollars. We have more dollars coming, which is really exciting, allowing us to provide more one-on-one instruction. We're also offering, as I mentioned earlier, this summer, some additional opportunities for students in K through 12 across the district. We are also looking with the additional funding coming from the federal government and the state with regards to CARES Act 2 for some additional instructional support, whether that's through a collaboration with the IT department for resources to help with remediation, people to assist teachers in the classrooms, to work with small groups of students based upon their skills gaps. I think our I Read and I Learn data will continue to provide us with additional data to use to inform instruction. We just finished, a 5-6 week process with our teachers, our PLC leaders, on how we can continue to use data to inform the instruction in the classroom, to look at those improvements. So I would say there are a lot of efforts going on right now, and I do want to reiterate that it takes a community. It takes our working with families, our working with students, our working with each other, continuing to collaborate and communicate. Because in addition to academics, we also have the SEL initiatives that we're implementing, and we know from the data, even from the state level, the national level, that the SEL influence of that social emotional health is having an impact on student success and well-being. And so I think you're starting to see more intervention and more integration of those components as well. I don't know if Dr.
The
Clinton...
the data that you quoted was from a national study? Is that what your information is from?
It's from the state.
The state? Well, I'm not sure, I don't know where they are getting the, we've not had any assessment to give back to the state to report
Not yet.
the success or not. But I would also say, and I believe I heard you ask us if we're going to pay, I'm going to translate, and if I'm wrong, please help me. Are we going to pay our teachers for doing half the work, is what I heard you say. Is that correct? So the answer is yes, correct? Our teachers are working extremely hard. This has been the most challenging journey for the last 18 months. And we're all taxpayers. I would tell you, every teacher in our district and every teacher across the state is working extremely hard to make learning come alive. Nobody said, let's go to the pandemic. Nobody. We're doing everything possible. So as superintendent, I'm affronted that you would come here today and challenge our teachers for not working hard. Challenge our teachers for not working with every kid. You heard about our guiding principles. They are still our guiding principles. So I would tell you, come watch, come see what we're doing. Our kids are getting the very best education in a pandemic that they can get. They are. I've got older kids that are in college. I'll take what our kids are getting over what they're getting at college. But our teachers are working extremely hard. So please, don't get up there and ask us, are we going to pay them half the time?
I didn't say you're not working hard.
You said we're not going to pay them. We're going to pay them. We're going to do everything possible. The state gave them a teacher appreciation grant. We gave our support staff an appreciation grant. A year from now, we'll continue to work as hard. The state, the federal government, everybody recognizes there's been a learning loss. It is a collaborative effort. I would more than welcome to sit down with you and walk you through everything we've done away from this. But as superintendent, I had to speak up and support our teachers. They're wonderful teachers. My kids have gone to school here. They're doing a great job. Nobody knew how to fly a plane, build a school during a pandemic. Franklin Schools has done a phenomenal job. And it's not because I'm the superintendent sitting here. It's because everybody else that has worked extremely hard, the hours we've put in to make this thing happen. So thank you for coming tonight. But I need to tell you, I disagree. I disagree wholeheartedly. Our teachers are doing a great job.
Well said. Exactly right.
Dr. Worland, I'm hoping you can touch on this. Earlier, when two members of our Diversity and Inclusion Committee were speaking, a virtual question came in from Laura Alexander, wondering when parents and students might have the opportunity to begin meeting with Dr. Aziz. Is that something that's on the radar?
They're on the committee. There's kids on the committee now.
There are students and there are parents as well on the committee because we have a lot of community engagement on the advisory committee. We are, each of the buildings at some point will have kind of, once the kind of the umbrella group, and we're working with cabinet, and doing some work with the board coming up. As that all happens and settles, each of the buildings will start with some of their own advisory committees. So I think you will start to see additional parent and student engagement as we progress. What do you think?
Yeah,
Does
that's
that?
correct. And we're also going to do focus groups
Oh, yeah.
around a lot of different community stakeholder groups. So parents will definitely be involved in that, as well as students. I think we talked about, for example, at the elementary, having the school counselor come alongside and help in that conversation. But as we continue to migrate towards the high school juniors and seniors, it will be with Dr. Aziz. That's all part of our plan as we move forward. And I would say that's going to happen. It's really going to depend on timing. It's probably not as fast as we want, so it may even get kicked to next August as we travel forward. But I would say between the end of April and the end of August, we will have those focus groups started.
For sure.
And going forward. But tell her thank you for
Great
the
question.
question. Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Robin.
Mrs. Betts, was there any other comments from the?
I think she's checking.
A year ago tomorrow, the board and this meeting basically said, get ready for a nightmare. And the saucer eyes I saw in Mr. Sprout on what he was going to have to do if and when we ever had to shut down, which unfortunately happened later that Friday. I will tell you, it wasn't the greatest setup, but what we could do, what we were able to do, was the best we could do in such a short notice. I'm glad to see an initiative to try to do something during the summer, so it's not left to us parents. I will tell you, I have 3 boys that are on IEPs. 2 of them took full advantage of just hitting that turn-in sign and moving on down the road. My youngest, he excelled at what little was there, but he needed to be in school. Fortunately, his grade level was where he could be in school all the time. A year later, minus a week, we're trying our best to be in and try to get going forward. It's not the best, not the greatest, and I know I'm maybe disputing a little bit of what was said, but the fact that we're even here a year later is amazing. And considering what we hear in the news of other school systems fighting over should teachers to students, even the students themselves, to be tested every day before they even go full time. The fact that our teachers, our staff, are bending over backwards, maybe even putting their own safety into question, if you want to look at it in the media terms, to try to get our kids back in school so we can get back on the road of where we were a year ago. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Betts, any other comments from the online? No. All right, thank you. Well, with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you for your time. Have a great evening.